We'll go ahead and get started here. I'd like to welcome you all to today's Collecting in the Cloud, Right for Your Business. My name is Greg Berglund, and I'm the Marketing Manager at Columbia Ultimate, and happy to be your host today. Today's topic is designed to help answer the question, can your organization benefit from moving to the cloud? We'll also learn more about the different types of cloud computing available, as well as the top reasons companies like yours move to the cloud. With that, I'd like to introduce our speaker today, Dave McCary of Zumasys. As Zumasys Software Sales Manager and Cultural Ambassador, Dave helps achieve the strategic vision of the software development discipline at Zumasys. Focusing on the customer-centric side of that vision, Dave has spent the last 10 years building an expertise in custom software development and how it can be used to help businesses of every size deliver value-add services to their customers. As you'll see today, Dave's ability to distill complex technology solutions into business language helps corporate leaders make educated decisions without becoming subject matter experts. Dave is a frequent speaker at technology and industry events with a special focus on cloud computing, TIC, and multi-value systems, and you may recognize him as one of our top-rated speakers from Columbia Ultimate's Art of Success 2015 conference. Thank you for joining us, Dave, and with that, I'd like to hand the presentation over to you now.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dave. I am the Cultural Ambassador here at Zumasys, and my hope today is really to take what we call cloud computing, easily the most obnoxiously overused marketing term in the history of IT, and break it down into what exactly is it, how do one of the very cool things about cloud is that it is something that can be tailored for each individual business. So as we go, feel free to submit questions, and I will just continue through from here. Right. A little bit about Zumasys and why we are the cloud partner for Columbia Ultimate Business Systems. We were founded in 2000. We're based out of Irvine, California. We've got about 70 employees now, and we're a $25 million privately held company, if that helps give you an idea of our size. We're very proud to be a #1 workplace. One of the things about providing high-end technical support to corporations is that you can't have a revolving door of your staff, and you have to do quite a bit to keep them happy and engaged at work. It allows you to always call us and get a personal experience. Our expertise has been in virtualization, in storage, in remote access, and in database support. It's been that way since our founding. We launched our cloud platform in 2006. Now, cloud is a new name for an old thing. When we launched it, we thought we'd put a citrus farm in a data center, and maybe people would want to rent compute instead of buying it. In the IT world, that's called a very good guess. We're now on our 9th generation build. We continue to update a lot of the big technology trends that are happening now, and the increased performance and capacity are really built towards cloud service providers like Zumasys. And so we take advantage of that and install new equipment on a fairly regular basis. I will get into some of the differences between different cloud service providers, but we are focused on the main business system, the one that cannot go down. That's the collection system for most of you. And you may have other apps in that category, and we specialize in virtual desktops. So let's start with a definition on cloud computing. It is simply taking your applications and data, removing them from relying on any one piece of hardware, and then providing access to them from any device with a browser. If you had a Hotmail account in the 90s, you've been doing cloud computing for a long time. It's the same as Netflix and Spotify and all the other services that we're used to. Doesn't matter what device. If it can get to the internet, I can get my application or my data. Here are the reasons why companies are moving towards the cloud. These are at least the most common ones. Obviously, we ask as we go through our day here. The first is the distributed workforce. For companies who have multiple branches, typically the servers will live in the headquarter building. Well, if the power goes out in that building, you can't afford for all your other branches to stop working. And so outsourcing that equipment allows you to ensure that everybody works no matter whether or not a single site goes down. The next is reliability. This is that disaster recovery, business continuity conversation, and this is really about ensuring that you have uptime, that the application is always available. Another is the repointing of IT resources. For many of you, you'll have a single person who runs IT in the company. And historically, the role of IT has been to keep the lights on, to choose which equipment vendors to buy from, and then to keep those applications and servers up and running. Today, I would argue that the lowest value task an IT person does is keeping the lights on, doing the backups and antivirus. Today, there's no major business initiative that happens that doesn't require technology on the back end. And so IT's true value now is the ability to listen to the needs of the business, go out into the industry to find technologies that will solve the need, and then bring that technology back and distill it in a way that the business can choose the right solution going forward. Another one is flexibility, particularly if you have seasonal work or if you're a growing company. This is the ability to turn it up and turn it back down on demand based on your individual needs. And then the last is the ability to access your application no matter where you are from any device with an internet connection. So the smartphone that is either in your pocket or out in your hand right now as you check Facebook and listen to this WebEx, that smartphone is more powerful than every computer NASA owned when we went to the moon combined. I'm going to come back to why this is important, but I just want to start by stating that we are moving very, very rapidly in the computer world, and the power of machines continues to increase. So let's do something basic here. For the sake of making sure that we're all on the same page, this may be a refresh for some of you, and for others this could be new information. So when you look at a server or an application, this is really what's living behind it, the hardware and then the operating system, the database, and then the application itself. So if your hardware is HP or IBM or Dell, and the operating system is Windows, and the database is Exchange, if we're talking about email, then the application would be Outlook. So in your world, then, we can still be HP, IBM, and Dell. The operating system is Linux or Unix or Windows, and the database may be U2, it may be JBase in your case. And then it's your multi-value application. So this would be the collector system. This could also be any SQL-based applications you have, mail, anything else. I'm going to come back to this diagram. So knowing that that's the layout of the server, here is the typical way that we have been installing applications historically around the world. And that is that you have an application, and then you go out and you source a physical server to run that application on. That server only serves that application, and there it is. When you have another application then, like email, you go out and you'll source another server, and you'll use that there. And what it does is it isolates all of those resources. So I've got processing power and RAM and storage all in my ERP server. Now I might not be using all my storage there, and on my email server I run out of storage. You can't just add in a hard drive. So one of the first issues is that. Now we move from all of that, and then we're going to take it and we're going to do backup to disk or to tape or to some off-site location. So the reason we've been doing this over the years is obviously because it's very inexpensive. You can buy a server for $10,000 to $15,000, have it installed, and run the collection system, or email, or any other application. But the cons we discussed, right? So you have isolated resources. You could be running end of fiscal reporting on your ERP server and need more processing power, while the email server is not working hard at all, but you can't share that. Same with the disk. And then the very important piece, that it's data only on the backup. So let's go back to our diagram here. The piece that we're backing up in the traditional model is the database only. What that means is that if your physical server were to die, you're going to be down in this order. Day 1, your techs will spend trying to get that server back online. Day 2, you'll admit that you can't, and you'll order an overnight replacement server from Dell or HP. Day 3, that server comes in. You then have to load the operating system. You have to patch it. You have to update the settings. Then you cross your fingers and hope that that data-only backup restores onto that machine. When I discuss that we're discussing Intel machines. For those of you who are running on AIX or HPUX, those machines can take 2 to 4 weeks in order to get resourced. And so what you're looking at, while it is low cost to run in the traditional computing model, the minimum recovery time is 3 to 5 days if a server goes down. And for most of us in 2015, there is no way we can suffer 3 to 5 days without access to our core billing system. So here's the pros and the cons of the traditional compute model that many, if not most of you, are still running today. So we move on to then what came next. And the first thing that came was from a company called VMware. And what VMware did was they came in and they created something called a hypervisor, which is what happens when you let nerds name things. And what the hypervisor did was it said, well, we'll take this one host server and we'll carve it up into many. When you buy a server today, the blades that we use in our data center environment have 12 processor cores and a 1/4 terabyte of memory. You and I don't run applications that need that kind of horsepower. And so the traditional server that's purchased today is being used 5 to 10%. That's like buying a Porsche and driving at 5 miles an hour. So the hypervisor comes in and allows you to run multiple servers on that one physical box. And now I get 80 to 90% utilization. It's a much better bang for my buck. However, it leaves one true problem, and that is that now if that server dies, I didn't just lose the one app, I lost all of those servers. And so for quite a few years, VMware was used purely in a tested development environment. Then in comes something truly magical, and that is the era of the storage area network. This is a whole bunch of hard drives with really smart, redundant brains. What happens is you can take 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, however many physical servers you want, and load the hypervisor on each of them. And what VMware will do is it will pool all of the resources, the processing power and the RAM, into one pool that can then be used dynamically by the virtual servers whenever they need the resources. So we solve isolation in processing power and RAM. Then on the storage side, we've got redundancy in the storage and the ability to expand how much storage is given to email or to ERP on demand. So that solves our isolated resources. The next piece is we talked about that database-only backup. And with the database-only backup, the challenge was all of the time it takes to recover. So in the VMware environment, the virtual servers live as file folders on the SAN. I'm having a little, there we go. All right, file folders on the SAN. It looks exactly like a file folder. It has the operating system, it has the settings, it has the database. It really is the entire server stored there. Not only are we able to do that, but we're then able to take snapshot backups. And this is exactly what it sounds like, a point-in-time picture of the server, and you can store multiple copies. I can then take all of that and replicate it out to a second data center. This is what that looks like. This allows me to do a couple of things. Not only can I have a single server fail, I can have an entire site fail and still run. When we talk about single server failure, right now if the VMware host 1 failed, the users who were accessing virtual machines through it would get kicked off, but they would log right back in and another server would pick up the load because those servers live exclusively on the SAN, not on the physical devices. So we now have pooled resources in processing power and RAM. We now have pooled resources in disk. We have full virtual machine backups, not database only, and we have end-to-end redundancy. What it means, and this is a very conservative number, is that instead of 3 to 5 days to recover if you have a physical server failure, it's 3 to 5 minutes to recover.
Dave, quick question.
Absolutely.
We were wondering about the internet speed requirements.
Certainly. So a lot of this depends on what you're going to be delivering from the data center or from the cloud. I'll discuss this a little bit further in, but with multi-value, the universe or JBase that you have underlying TCS, it is very, very efficient across the wide area network, so you need very little bandwidth. On the flip side, if you're delivering desktops or perhaps Windows-based client-server applications, you can use Citrix to accelerate that. Citrix then needs 150K per user up and down, and once again we'll cover this a little bit in a couple of moments. And then the flip side is that you can also run a MPLS network and actually connect the cloud directly to your sites. So there are a few ways to tackle that, and it typically is driven by whatever format of application you're trying to deliver. So once you get all of that equipment, let's assume that you were to buy it yourself and put it in place, then you have to know where you're going to put it. And if you put it in your building, that's a whole lot of money sitting in your building, and your building becomes then the single point of failure. Power outage, sprinklers go off, or something extreme like an earthquake or a tornado. So location matters. And if you look at where most of the new funding is happening in IT, where the big money is being spent, it is in data centers. We operate out of the Switch SuperNAP, which I'll chat about in a few moments, but the location of systems really begins to matter. I need the facility to have redundant power and redundant internet and to be able to withstand things like earthquakes and tornadoes, etc. So here's a few different versions of cloud that you'll come to. Everything as a service. So the first is infrastructure as a service. This is something that Zumasys does. Infrastructure as a service says that I will provide all of the physical hardware and you will then manage your virtual machines, which is something that we do on a regular basis. Desktop as a service is I'm going to give you an entire virtual desktop that you access through the internet so that you have the same desktop experience whether you're on a Mac, an iPad, your office computer, a laptop, or a friend's computer, or even something at a hotel. Software as a service is the ability to buy rental-based licensing as opposed to buying a software package. Salesforce.com is probably the biggest name in the SaaS world. Database as a service. This is something that some database providers offer, and that is that you can get a virtual machine with rental-based licensing on your database. Zumasys offers one in the form of JBase. This is another format that you'll see coming out more and more. Backup as a service says I'm going to run all of my gear in-house, but I want to replicate a copy of that to a data center so that I have off-site backup. Not much different than any off-site backup you would be doing today. And then disaster recovery as a service says not only do I want to send all of my virtual machines to a second site, I want the ability to turn them on in that site should I have a major failure in my building. There's more than one path to get there as well. So the first and the most famous in the cloud computing world is Microsoft Office 365. Office 365 has a couple of components. One is email only. The majority of companies around the world run on Microsoft Exchange. If you run it in-house and you talk to your IT person, they'll tell you that it's responsible for the biggest bloat in the business. It continues to grow. Microsoft has put a lot of effort into taking over email for corporate users, and this is more and more becoming the standard of how to run your email, as opposed to having an Exchange server in-house that you manage and upgrade. They also offer the full Office suite that allows you to access Office from multiple devices, and you can use OneDrive as a centralized file sharing of those documents. There are the commodity cloud providers. These are folks like Rackspace and Amazon and Azure. The goal here, they're also called hyperscalers. The goal here is to provide very inexpensive compute out of data centers. So where this is often used for is web services and other applications that can be outsourced to someone like that. Typically what does not go to commodity cloud providers is the main business system, the ERP, especially if it's a Unix machine or Linux or something a little more on the odd side. It connects back across the network to a dialer in your building. Those are where you tend to find yourself going towards other cloud providers. White label, and you're going to see this quite a bit. This is an IT services company that offers cloud computing, but what they're doing is reselling Azure, Rackspace, or Amazon. And then there's high performance cloud, and these are clouds that are built for the main business system, virtual desktops, not the kind of organization you would outsource just a couple of web servers to. Zumasys is for certain a high performance cloud service provider. A few things about the Zoomis Solution. When we provide either TCS or any other applications out of the data center, we are coming out of the Switch SuperNAP in Las Vegas, Nevada. The building we're in is 407,000 square feet. The campus is 2.2 million square feet. eBay has an acre of servers under the roof. Pixar renders all of their films there. Sony is there, all the casinos are there, and enough agencies of the government that I'll give you two stats about the uptime in this building. And the first one is that in the state of Nevada, the critical infrastructure list says if the whole state loses power, the order of reboot is number 1, the Hoover Dam, and number 2, this building. Their guards have a federal mandate that allows them to commandeer diesel fuel trucks off the freeway at gunpoint in the case of a national emergency. This building does not go down. And when Zumasys takes on your main business system, we're taking advantage of the 100% uptime guarantee of the SuperNet, including the fact that they send us in our internet pipe 18 carriers blended together so that AT&T can drop their entire network, but we still don't lose connectivity. If you're into, yes?
One more quick question. Could you clarify what ERP is?
Yes, this is typically your main business system. It's going to be the collector system for those of you on this call. You may also have an accounting package that you use. This could be SAP, Great Plains. ERP is a tech term for enterprise resource planning. It's really the core application that runs your business, and that's where we focus. If you're interested in the gear and equipment, we run Cisco networking, Cisco UCS Blade servers, NetApp is our storage platform, VMware is our virtualization platform, and we use Citrix to deliver anything that's not multi-value based. So any high-end Windows applications or desktops, we use Citrix to deliver those. I'm happy to have a conversation after this WebEx with absolutely anybody who wants to know more about the specifics of the Zumasys Cloud. My hope today was to stay focused on some of the generalities that we have in the realm of cloud computing. So you have the ability to build out all of this equipment in your data center if you want to, or you can outsource it to someone else. Now, when we talk about the equipment that's being ordered, it's very expensive. It continues to become more and more complex. And so choosing a partner becomes important, whether you're going to run it in-house or in a data center or a mixture of both, which is becoming more and more common. So one of the things that we found is that who becomes the most important question. It really is irrelevant whether they run on NetApp or EMC storage, whether they use Hyper-V or VMware for the virtualization piece. It really is about the company behind it. So here are a few tips for finding the right company to provide cloud services to you. Some things that you can ask for when you're getting to know the providers. One is a review of their financials. If you're going to hand your core business system over to another company, it would be good to know if they're financially stable and viable. Next is the data center tour. There are lots of companies out there who run data centers. Some of them are small buildings, some of them are garages, some of them are large facilities like the SuperNet. Always find out where your data is going to be located, both the production data and wherever they're replicating their backups to. Another is Glassdoor.com, and I would definitely write this down. This fascinating site allows ex-employees and current employees to rate the company that they work or worked for. You can get some very interesting insight on the culture of a company, on how their employees feel about their managers. And granted, of course, you have to take it all with a grain of salt, but it is a very quick and easy way to learn some things about companies you're considering partnering with. And the last for me is always to ask for a customer list. You and me and everyone else can always pick 2 or 3 happy customers to use as your references, but it's really more about knowing who else runs on your platform. I'd like to be able to pick and choose who I want to talk to. Will they give you a bigger list than just the 2 or 3 cherry-picked references? It is in our experience that who matters much more than what or where. The partner you choose is going to be very important. The downside to cloud computing, everybody brings it up, right, is that today you can just operate out of your building. So the downside is that you must have an internet connection to run your company. Of course, the upside is all you need is an internet connection to run your company, and you can get one at Starbucks or McDonald's. And so by outsourcing to another company and saying, hey, I'm not going to invest millions in hardware, but I want all of the uptime that I would get if I did. Outsourcing to a cloud partner allows you to do that and also frees you from having to be in any one specific place to do your job. it also is very much so not a technology decision. It's a trust decision. And it's why many times the provider that works with your software vendor tends to be the one that you go with, is because the trust is already built. Either way, it's my experience in the sales cycle here at Zumasys that it tends to be a 6 to 18-month conversation as everybody gets to know each other. There's a lot more involved than the simple days of buying a server from a vendor. These days, you're really connecting your company in a personal way. With that, I'll leave it to some questions if folks have some. There certainly is much to cover. I did start with the slide about the NASA computers, and as things are getting very, very complex, the main change that is going on is that that continues to speed up. It's not just from NASA to now, it's the fact that we're doubling the power of the computer processor roughly every 18 to 24 months. That's called Moore's Law. If we continue to do so, we know when that process will end. We're doing this progression by shrinking the silicon chip in half. Well, by roughly 2025, at our current pace, we'll create a silicon chip that measures 1 atom across. You can't get any smaller. So what's happening is, sorry, go ahead.
We do have a question that came in. Do you have a Canadian data center? As customer-supplied information on our ERP cannot reside in the U.S., it must remain in-country.
So today, absolutely. Today, Zumasys does not have a data center environment in, in Canada. We are opening in Europe and Australia very shortly. What we do in situations like this is that we can help you to use something like Windows Azure or perhaps VMware's cloud environment, and you can still utilize our expertise as we go in and provide the setup and the systems out of something that's in Canada. We do have customers in Canada who run off of our cloud platform in the States, but every industry has its own requirements and compliance that they have to deal with. This is why we're partnered with Microsoft and Amazon and Rackspace, is so that we can provide the right solution for the right customer.
Another question for you. By hosting software as a service or a full virtual environment with Zumasys, where is the support on software, upgrade agreements, collaboration, and design, etc.?
Certainly. So if we're talking about the collector system, you continue to work with Columbia Ultimate Business Systems on that, and to do upgrades and updates and things like that. If you're also moving in other applications and you want to do virtual desktops, Zumasys absolutely can provide full management of the desktops. Our customers really range. We have folks who have no IT people on staff and we do everything for them. And we have folks with a very sizable IT staff and a competent one, and all we do is serve up the applications. In the instance of software updates, if it's something like TCS, you'll do that through Cubs, and then we'll work with them to make sure the update gets loaded onto your machine. Another thought that might be helpful is you're talking with your business leadership about the idea of, do we go to the cloud, do we stay on site? A couple of things have come up over the years that I think are helpful. One is that the conversation is really about insurance. So if you look at your business, you're looking at insurance policies for fire and theft and flood and earthquake and workers' comp, and it's thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of dollars a year spent on that insurance. But if you have TCS running on a single server with data-only backup, you essentially have no insurance on the one application that can stop the company dead in its tracks. And so cloud computing is a way to go out and buy that insurance so that the application is always available all the time. Another analogy that may be helpful, particularly when you're talking with the non-technical business leadership, is to talk about water. It used to be if you wanted water on your property, you would dig a well and that's how you got your water. But we don't do that anymore, at least most of us don't. We don't because wells are expensive. They're complicated, they're hard to maintain, you have to constantly keep up on them. And so what we do is we outsource that and we let the water district drill all the wells and do all the expertise and keep all the staff trained and manage all of that and invest in the infrastructure. And then we turn our faucets on and off and we pay for how much water we use. Cloud computing is doing the same thing, allowing the service provider to invest the millions in equipment, to take advantage of the data center, which are hundreds of millions of dollars worth of facilities, and then you simply pay for the bit that you use when you use it. You may find those analogies helpful in your conversations with your team. I've found that it truly has ceased to be a technology conversation. Cloud computing is about protecting your access to the one application that runs your entire company. And then it's really about choosing who is best to help guide you there. You have the benefit of having Columbia Ultimate Business Systems as your software partner, and they are going to be very well equipped to help guide you along the way as well.
A few more questions for you, Dave. Do you have IT vendor management?
And this, I may need that person to clarify. I think what you're asking is, do we help you manage your other IT vendors? If that person could type in a little clarification, and let's jump to the next question and then come back to that one.
Sure. So the process of conversion, can you explain how that goes?
Yes, this is one of the great benefits of being 9 years into providing cloud computing, is we have a variety of ways to migrate. There could be two components. One may be to move from Unix to Linux as an operating system, but assuming you're on an OS that we can virtualize. Now what we tend to do is we build a copy in the data center, a virtual machine all set and ready. We then port a copy of your data in, and you run some side-by-side tests to make sure that everything moves over well, everything is showing up as it's supposed to, you can print, etc. And then on a weekend, we take a couple of hours, we shut down, we have you send over an updated backup, and we bring you online, and we point your users to the new location. This is usually done over a Saturday night, very late, and Sunday is set in as a buffer. Migrations are very smooth and simple, particularly when you're talking about multi-value applications like TCS. Desktops, when you move your virtual desktops with your mail perhaps and other applications, it can get more complex, but the cutover still is traditionally over a weekend, and the downtime is very minimal. Did we get any clarification on the first question?
We do. A little clarification. They were thinking more along the lines of managing upgrades and costs with IT vendors.
So we do manage certainly the upgrades, and without digging too deep into the weeds, for instance, if there's a TCS upgrade, we can absolutely be the ones who push that update through for you. On our desktop as a service platform, we keep Windows updated, we keep Office updated, we keep the email server updated, and we keep Citrix updated, and we manage all of that. We don't tend to manage other IT vendors. We're more on the line of cooperating with them and working with them however the customer needs. I say all of that just to be conservative and try to answer the question directly, and then I'll overarch it with our business specialty is custom-tailored cloud solutions. It doesn't make us the cheap guy on the block, but it does make us the ones who can tailor it exactly to what your company needs. And so if we need to help manage some updates with other applications or work with other vendors, we're happy to do so. It's a regular part of our business.
Another one for you. If we are currently running virtual servers such as VMware, do you have hybrid solutions that allow us to manage internally on our hardware and have full redundant backups with full cloud access if needed?
Yes is the answer to that. There's an outstanding piece of technology called Veeam. That's V-E-E-A-M. And it is a storage agnostic hypervisor replication software. What it means is that I don't care if your virtual machine lives on the direct attached storage of servers in your building, or if you're on an EqualLogic or an EMC or a Left Hand or a Nimble SAN, you are able to wrap that virtual machine up with Veeam and replicate it across to the Zumasys data center environment. And then we can mount it on our side should you ever need to. That would be under the classification of disaster recovery as a service.
Okay. Another question. We have a file server in addition to the collector system. Does Zumasys offer a way to access those files?
Yes. So there are a couple of ways to do this, and it will depend wholly on how you're accessing the files. So we have customers who will run TCS with us, and everything else will stay in their building. They may have ties that need to interact with Excel or Word directly out of TCS, in which case we will do that across the VPN tunnel that securely connects your site to the data center. For those who want to have cloud-based access to their files separate from TCS, there are a couple of ways to do that. You can do it through Office 365, which is often a good solution. The other is that you can choose to do file services out of the data center. Traditionally speaking, if you're going to deliver Windows-based applications out of the data center, you'll find that wrapping them in a Citrix desktop is the best way to deliver them. That's certainly been our path. That goes kind of back to the same thing, that there are 2 to 3 ways to accomplish most tasks, most desires, and we come in with the ability to do each and all of them and then walk through with you personally what's going to be best for your company and then help you deploy that.
Okay. One more came in here. So in everyday use, if we send a document to be printed and we get an error message that has something to do with the server print spooler, how does a situation like this get rectified?
So we have an entire staff here that's dedicated to supporting our customers who are on the cloud. These are all payrolled employees. They're based out of our buildings. And so things like this do happen, hung ports, spoolers that go offline, and you'll just call into Zumasys technical support, and one of our people will log in, help release that, and take care of it that way for you. Other times it may be something related directly to the collector system, and you're calling Cubs for support, and then they reach out to Zumasys because they need us to execute on some part of the solution. And then third, anything that you are able to do today with the system in your building, you can do in the data center, with the exception of touch the physical server. Other than that, any management capacity that you have today, you would maintain moving into a cloud computing environment.
Okay, we're not seeing any more questions come in at the moment.
Okay.
Well, it sounds like that's about done. Dave, do you have any more comments you wanted to add?
I would just add that it is very consistent that cloud computing has a bit of scariness to it, the idea that the server won't be in the building and we can't control it and access it. And I would just go back to reiterating again that it really is a trust conversation, and that the best way to get started is just to pick someone to talk to about it, like your software vendor, Columbia Ultimate, and begin the conversation. Whether you move to the cloud this year, next year, or 5 years from now, the reality is that most companies will stop buying servers and running them in-house. So I would just encourage anyone who's got possibly some resistance in-house to just go ahead and set up a call with Columbia Ultimate, and they can bring us in. We can answer questions. We often go on site and chat with folks. Now is the time to start the conversation, even if you don't think you're going to jump soon. Either way, it's our pleasure to serve your organization, and we like the Cubs customers that we talk to, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to come and share with you today.
Okay, we actually just had a few more cycle in here. Do you have an agreement in place with Cubs for non-disclosure and data access to the Cubs in the cloud platform?
NDAs are typically executed between Zumasys and the end user, so if you wanted to do an NDA, we would do that with you directly, as opposed to a global one with Cubs. It wouldn't really be enforceable with all of their end users. So I hope that makes sense. But yes, we do NDAs on a consistent basis because we are accessing information that's essential to your personal business.
How do we address an audit assessment such as an SSAE 16?
Certainly. So the SSAE 16 is the combination of the SOC 1 and 2 audits. The data center already has SOC 1 and 2 and 3 already set up and established. The Zumasys is in process of actually going through the same certification. SOC 1 takes a year to complete. We're almost 3/4 of the way through that. And then SOC 2 doesn't happen until after you've been for a year in SOC 1. All of that is that SSAE 16. This has traditionally been a certification just for data centers. It's about physical processes. Zumasys going out to get SSAE 16 certified. It's an unusual move for the service provider themselves, but one which we decided to do because we deal with companies who have very sensitive medical data, personal financial data, etc. That is something that we are in the process of doing right now.
We've had a few different questions come in asking about average costs or monthly costs, but I'm thinking those would be better handled offline.
Yes, and the main reason is that it's going to depend on what else you have tied into TCS. So folks who have TCS only, you're looking at a smaller figure than someone who has TCS and Great Plains and also wants desktops. But yes, we would be happy to get on the phone and walk through what you have and then provide pricing directly to you. Easy to do.
Okay, well, I'm not seeing any further questions. Oh, hold on just one second.
Okay.
How about access management?
Not sure what the question is. I need a little more detail to answer that, I think.
Okay, let's see if we can get a little bit more feedback here.
I think one of the things that's important to know is that when you move TCS to a cloud provider like Zumasys, nothing changes on your side. Nothing changes on the end user side. Yes, we have to point them to the new direction, now to the data center, but they experience the application the same way, most likely with better performance because we have more hard drives to throw at it, and the databases underneath TCS are disk I/O intensive. The more spindles they have, the better they perform. I hope that helps. Did we get anything more on the access control?
Good. Say, for example, we have an employee who leaves the company and we are hosting a virtual desktop. How do we manage access? Through their domain controller?
Got it. So, yes, there are two ways that this happens if you're hosting full desktops. And one is that you'll go in and you'll block the user in Active Directory. The other is you could call up Zumasys and ask us to do it, which folks do sometimes. That's kind of that second half of the what I was saying is that not only does it not change for the end users, but you will maintain all the management controls that you have today. You'll maintain all of those in the new environment. You can still reboot servers, you can add memory, you can add processor, add drive space, check on its performance, add, remove, and change users. You still have full access. We don't hide anything in a black box at Zumasys. Our customers could move off our cloud without telling us if they wanted to. All of our monitoring systems would blow alarms, but we really don't lock it down. The goal in this case is that we're infrastructure as a service. My job is to invest in the infrastructure, have the best in the business, ensure that it's up, and give you the resources that you can manage. So once again, it depends on what you need. We're happy to manage it for you, or we're happy to hand over the keys to you.
Very good. We're not seeing too many more questions flood in. Do you have anything else this time around, Dave?
No, just thank you very much for allowing me to be here, and for anyone on the call who has more questions, please reach out to your Columbia Ultimate account rep and ask them to put together a call with Zumasys, and we'd be glad to come on. Eugene Hallinan is the guy who does most of the work with Cubs customers, and we'll set up calls, answer your questions, and it'd be our pleasure to do that one-on-one.
Great. And we'd like to thank everyone for joining us today, and thank you, Dave, for a great presentation. We will be posting some video covering this material in the next few weeks and answers to all the questions that were asked for each attendee by the end of the week. So once again, thank you all and have a great day.